Good evening and welcome, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff and those viewers watching at home to this meeting of the Moira Shire Council. I now invite the Mayor to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Claire. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to guide our deliberations for the welfare and the benefit of the Moira Shire and the people whom we serve. Amen. Acknowledgement to country. We, the Moira Shire Council, would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and pay respects to their elders, both past and present. Good evening. Kevin Burke tendered his resignation earlier this month. On behalf of Council, I would like to thank Kevin Burke for his contribution during his almost 10 years of councillor. Kevin worked tirelessly for the betterment of all residents in the Moira Shire and advocated strongly on behalf of Council. We wish Kevin all the best on his future endeavours. A count back to fill Kevin's vacancy will take place at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 14th of December. We will be able to view the count back on the VEC website and the results will be published by the VEC. The results will also be available on our council website as well as our social media page directly following the count back. Also, Moira Shire Council is participating in a national program, 16-day of activism against gender-based violence. This is an annual campaign highlighting the issues still occurring of violence against women. We are all wearing orange pins in support of this campaign. Iconic buildings in our major towns will also be lit up in orange. They are opportunities for the community to learn more. Go to our website to register for a free webinar with guest speakers from Victoria Police and other government departments. We're also encouraging community members to wear something orange on the 26th of November to help promote this campaign. Apologies and request a leave of absence. Any apologies? No, thank you. Declaration under the Act, regulations of codes of local laws, nil. Declaration of any interest or conflict of interest. Nil, thank you. Confirmation of minutes from previous meeting. Could I have a councillor move the previous meeting, please? Councillor Limbrick.
Sorry, where do we get that? Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that the minutes of the scheduled council meeting held on Wednesday, the 27th of October, 2021, and the minutes of the scheduled meeting of the council held on Wednesday, the 10th of November, 2021, are as prepared be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a councillor second that, please? Councillor Cox. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors to provide verbal reports. Any councillors, please, to provide verbal reports. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this month, I attended, along with Councillor Elliott, a public meeting at the Yarrawonga Primary, the old Yarrawonga Red School Primary School site in Tom Street, Yarrawonga. It was attended by approximately 300 people, which was pretty accurate, I think. The meeting was generally concerned about council's possible inaction of the purchase of the site and what's going to happen. There were several speakers and the general feeling of the people there that they'd like to see council move on the possible purchase of the site. I've also got as part of that, they had a petition which is signed by over 900 signatures of the district of the same view. Thank you, and Mr. Mayor. Secondly, I attended at Urannah, New South Wales, in Federation Shire, the annual meeting of Region 2, the Murray-Darling Association. The chair of that was Bronwyn Thomas, who's not renominating for council in December 4, and the chair has been taken over by Jeff Dobson of the Shepparton City Council. All other executive positions were held over until after the New South Wales general elections, which will be on December 4, because we need people from delegates from Federation Shire, Berrigan Shire, the Nilluquin Shire, etc. It was a very successful meeting, and we had a couple of guest speakers who spoke about all things water, and it went over very well. So I'm looking forward to Councillor Jeff Dobson taking over Region 2 as chair, and I'm sure he'll do a great job over the next 12 months or so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I also attended by Zoom the AGM of the Murray-Darling Association, Region 2. Interesting public speakers talking about, that we've really got to look at the climatic influences on our rivers, because if we don't have, water, there actually is no environment. So they were sort of looking at how we ensure that our native flora and fauna can be sustained, looking at damage done to the rivers and the banks, and also looking at a partnership with the Indigenous so that we have joint custodianship and ownership of the water. And they also spoke about the Yanco system, the Billabong Creek and that, and their corridors and that, and what they were doing there. So it was very interesting. And yes, I look forward to when we can have our next meeting, because water is pretty important. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, any other councillors to provide its reports? Councillor Brooks, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 10th of November, the Mayor, Councillor Mustica, and CEO Claire Keenan had the pleasure of meeting the Honourable Mary Ann Thomas, who's the Minister for Regional Development in the Andrews State Government. We had the opportunity to speak to her about the various projects that the Moira Shire has on the go, including the new library, the multi-sports stadium, both at Yarrawonga, the Green Route Bridge project, the Numurkah flood mitigation project, the Goulburn Murray Regional Fruit Fly project, amongst others. And it was also a good opportunity for us to raise our concerns with the Minister regarding the labour shortages across the various sectors in our community, but also in particular seasonal workers, and also to talk about the poor telecommunications that we experience across our shire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Any other councillors? Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick ones. I attended the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 21st of October with Councillor Martin. The minutes of that meeting are part of the agenda later, but one of the things that did come out in general business at the end of the meeting was a review of the scope of that Audit and Risk Committee. So just reviewing the matters that actually come before that committee that may be relevant to the operation of council. So I think that's probably a sensible thing to do. Things are changing all the time. And so rather than having a set agenda and just dealing with the same stuff over and over again, that we actually have a look at other potential issues that committee may be interested in or take part of and give feedback on. So the rest, as I say, the rest of the agendas, the rest of it's in the agenda. And the other meeting I attended was the GMID meeting in Shepparton, at which Councillor Dobson from Shepparton City Council spoke about the Barmer Choke and the plans in relation to bypasses. And I won't steal Councillor Mansfield's thunder, but there is certainly a lot of work, and having Councillor Dobson, in my view, as the chair of that will make a significant difference, hopefully. He's certainly passionate about, and he has a good knowledge. And Councillor Greg James from the City of Greater Shepparton is also providing feedback on behalf of the Order in relation to that plan. And I think that's a real advantage, because that engagement is critical to getting any further development in that area. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Limbrick. Any other councillors? No? Okay, thank you, councillors. There we go into public question time this afternoon. Questions from constituents will be read and answered by our CEO, Claire Keenan. Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions regarding the closure of the Weir Bridge in Yarrawonga. The first one, will the Weir Bridge be open for pedestrians and cyclists before Christmas? The Murray-Darling Basin Authority and Goulburn Murray Water are the responsible authorities, and are better placed to answer this question in relation to the Weir Bridge closure. We recommend redirecting your question to MDBA. The second one, a question has been received regarding the closure of the Weir Bridge and the heightened risk to people using Belmore Street, especially over the Christmas season, because of the increased traffic. So Belmore Street is an arterial road and is therefore the responsibility of Regional Roads Victoria. As recently as 2 weeks ago, Council met with the Honourable Mary Ann Thomas, Minister for Regional Development and Agriculture, to advocate for the construction of a new bridge, as this Council has been doing for some years now, across Lake Mawala and along the Green Route alignment, which is the only long-term solution to the concerns that are outlined. Council will forward these concerns through to the Regional Roads Victoria Regional Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, continue on. Office reports for determination. 10.1, Office of the CEO. 10.11, Council meeting schedule 2022. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Lawless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation that Council 1 set the date, time and place of council meetings as .1, schedule council meetings to be held on the 4th Wednesday of the month, unless it conflicts with a public holiday, commencing at 5 p.m. during Eastern Standard Times and 6 p.m. during daylight saving time. And the second dot point there is that all scheduled council meetings be held at the Cobram Civic Centre, council chambers, while COVID is still a consideration. And 2, briefing sessions to be held on the 2nd Wednesday of the month and held on the 3rd Wednesday of the month if required.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Cox will second that. Councillor Lawless, wish to speak to it?
Look, it's pretty straightforward. This is pretty much the status quo of the way we have been operating. And in my time on council, I think most of us have in the past. I think we've moderated the days and times, but I think they pretty much suit most people. I haven't been hearing any complaints, so I see no reason to change. But the only other comment I would make, though, look, hopefully in the future we can get back to the model we had before, where we can get around all of the major towns, because I think that's really important. But fully understanding the logistics of some of the communications we have to set up to do these sessions under COVID. But hopefully, I think that's what we should be looking forward to in the future, getting around all the towns and getting across to Nathalia and Numurkah and up to Yarrawonga, because I think that's a really important part that gives people an opportunity that can just wander down. But I think it shows a bit of respect to all of the towns rather than just being here all the time. But I fully understanding where we are at present, so I'd like to support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Cox, you wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to that motion?
Yes, I'd just like to concur with Councillor Lawless. I think it would be great when conditions allow that we can actually move around, because Numurkah, for instance, does have a proper setup there with the raised platform and things like that. And I think you possibly have more engagement with your community. I know we've got COVID at the moment. We're lucky we've got Zoom, but I think that would be great if the day comes that we can actually move out into the wider community again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any other councillors wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I agree with the previous speakers, but I think the major issue is making sure that if we're going to do this, that we can live stream. It's fairly obvious from the statistics that we've had 18,000 of our ratepayers viewing council meetings over the last 9 months, which is significantly more than we get in-person attendance at a council meeting anywhere around. So I think if we're going to do that, we need to make sure that we've got the technology right and that we can actually have the live streaming as well as the ability for the local people in the region to come into the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Limbrick. Any other councillors wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Lawless, you wish to sum up?
Only to support Councillor Limbrick and what he's just said. I think it is really important because we are getting a lot more exposure to what's going on, and I think a lot more people have become aware. And if there's an issue coming up, it's been terrific and I think our staff have done a magnificent job streamlining what we had, rather than when we were all with our iPads trying to do it. But yeah, I think that's a really important point that he's made.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. 10.2 corporate. 10.21 Assembly of Council October 2021. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the council receive and note the record of assemblies of councillors for October 2021.
Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Elliott. Councillor Limbrick, you wish to speak to it?
I think it's straightforward, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Elliott.
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, I just think in the interests of transparent and accountable governance, this record shows clarity in our decision-making process and the council's commitment to transparency in attendance, conflicts of interest, staying informed and abreast of all agenda items. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr Mayor.
councillor Elliott. Any other councillor wish to speak to it? Councillor Limbrick, you wish to sum up? Councillor Elliott's
I
done it
reserve my
all.
right. Councillor Elliott said it all. He did very well.
Thank you. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. 10.2.2 Audit Risk Committee meeting minutes, 21st of October 2021. Could I have a councillor move those? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move a motion that item 1, accept the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 21st of October 2021, and 2, endorse the recommendations contained within these reports, Mr Mayor.
Could I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Martin, did you have your hand up? Yes. Councillor Cox, you wish to speak to it?
Reserve my right, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, at our Audit and Risk Committee meeting, we considered the following reports. We had the Work and Health Status Report, we had the Quarterly Claims Management Report, Policy Register Update, Risk Register Report, Fraud Risk Register Report, Procurement Policy Review, Internal Audit Action Status Report, and Major Project Incidents and Legal Proceedings. Also Audit and Risk Committee meeting dates for 2/22. Now, Councillor Limbrick mentioned, just touched on the fact that we will sort of even be adding more to that. And we're also looking at the possibility of extending the membership of the committee to another member of the community. So they're things to look forward to in the future. The other thing that we've just got to be, while we don't have any high risk, we've just got to be mindful that we don't have residual risk sitting there for a long time, that they do become a higher risk. So that sort of that was just something that was noted. But apart from that, everything, all the money's there, and yeah, everything's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any other councillor wish to speak to it? Councillor Limbrick.
I think the committee acts appropriately, and I think we do consider all of the relevant issues, and we did discuss the matter that Councillor Mansfield is alluding to. I think that so I won't go any further with that. What I would like to do though is recognise the job that Lisa Ford has done as chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee, and was replaced recently by Fred Douglas, and we look forward to having Fred as our chair for the next couple of years. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge Lisa's contribution to that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Limbrick. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Cox, you wish to sum up? All those in favour for the motion? Carried. Thank you. 10.2.3 Community Asset Committee Annual Report. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Lawless. Going around circles here. Too many Peters.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that council note the annual report in relation to activities and performance of the Community Assets Committee in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Could I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Limbrick. Thank you. Councillor Lawless, you wish to speak to it?
The first point I'd like to make that at a council meeting in 2020 resolved to create community asset committees to manage our facilities perhaps in a better way. This report this report provides details of activities and performance of the asset committees, like the report that we're actually talking about now. And the role of the committee members is to manage facilities and promote and encourage the use of those facilities to get the best out of the assets that we're putting a lot of money into around the Shire. And the main reason that we have to do this report because we need to conform with state government legislation.
Yeah, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Elliott, could you not push your speakerphone as that camera's going around in circles? Councillor Limbridge.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, it's important to acknowledge the contribution of all the volunteers around the municipality who act on these committees. They do an amazing job, and we have 4 showgrounds and 15 recreation reserves and 2 historical precincts that we look after. And so that's a significant number of volunteers who do an amazing job. And I'd just like to acknowledge the contribution of all of those volunteers and the staff that help to look after them.
Thank you, Councillor Limbridge. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Lawless, you wish to sum up?
No, I think.
Hold on a second, please. Councillor Martin, sorry. Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to that motion?
Yes, I support it. The only thing I a little bit concerned about, it says where community asset committees are required by council to have a general meeting at least quarterly or once every 3 months, which I think is the same thing, or more frequently if desired, and an AGM annually, whereas before it was once a month. So I would sort of hope things just wouldn't, every committee is different, and I'm sure you don't have a meeting just to have a meeting, but that concerns me a little bit because some of them have a great deal of assets that they are responsible for, and I sort of think that 3-month period is could be a long time. So I think that's something we just need to keep in hand. And I'd also, I think with the risk management, a really good job's been done of letting the community and all those people that are on those committees know what the COVID safe thing is for the sports grounds and other buildings and that in the Shire. So I think that's been really well done. But just that the frequency of meetings, I personally think that could be better, because I think things do come up, and 3 months is an awful long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Sorry, Councillor Lawless, you wish to sum up? All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. 10.3 community, 10.31 social housing. Can I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Brooks.
The council acknowledges sectors of our community are facing increased housing stress. Number 2 approves a review to identify underused or redundant council land, which could be suitable for a social housing development, as well as explore other social housing options that may exist within the Shire. And number 3, subject to item 2, supports an EOI process for social housing providers to develop these sites using funding under the state government's $5.3 billion big housing build.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. And I have a Councillor Elliott. Thank you. Councillor Brooks, you wish to speak to that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a tremendous initiative of the Victorian State Government. And I understand that of that 5.3 billion, 25% of that money will be spent in rural and regional Victoria. Moira Shire is facing a significant increase in demand for housing. And whilst this is a great thing for our local economy, it puts those on low incomes at risk and potentially facing homelessness. I understand also that there are around 40 not-for-profit social housing providers, of which Moira Shire has already been in discussion with 3 of those providers who have indicated some interest in our Shire. So I think it's a tremendous initiative for us. The stats are alarming if you look at them closely, that there's an estimated 80 odd people in our Shire who are homeless every night, and the numbers of people that are waiting on social housing lists for our region are equally alarming. Equally disturbing is the stat that Moira Shire is the 145th most disadvantaged Shire out of a list of 544 councils. So all these numbers are of concern. So I do absolutely applaud the initiative. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about the camera being on me for the less amount of time as possible. But anyway, I just want to endorse Councillor Brooks's comments and take the opportunity to recognise the fact that Moira does face an ever-increasing problem with homelessness. But it does also, give Moira a chance to present an opportunity, because as we all know, the building industry is experiencing an absolute boom at the moment, Mr. Mayor, but with every boom comes a levelling out, and the industry will slow to some degree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Lawless.
Just in supporting the previous councils, I think this is, and we talked earlier today about this in some detail, but and I think it's a terrific project to be involved in. But I think one of the things that will be good for us is actually identifying the underused or redundant council land that we have, and explore other options for social housing. And I think it's an area that we do need to get in. I think that we're probably really aware that the areas will need to be in maybe the bigger towns that have got all of those other services there. But it might give us something else to think about. And I know it's a pet subject of Councillor Brooks's, and we have talked about it in the future. And she's very well versed in this area. So I think we should take on board some of her knowledge.
Thank you, Councillor. See any other councillors wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly in support of the motion and Councillor Brooks's opening remarks, which were very well researched, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, it's come down to this, I think, in this day and age, that the state government's got to provide billions of dollars for social housing, you know, in so-called the lucky country. I just sort of feel as if, you know, we've got to help some of these underprivileged people to get themselves into a better life outcome or path. And I guess at the end of the day, the taxpayers put up this money. And I just think that it's going to be money well spent, because it's an investment in your own people. And I just think that that is a great investment in your own people, because you probably can never spend enough money there, Mr. Mayor, as a country in that area. And given what some families have done for this country over numerous years. So I just, it's an area I'm not really comfortable with in saying that I don't know a real lot about it, Mr. Mayor. But I will definitely support it, Mr. Mayor, as we go forward and as a council. Thank you.
Well spoken, Councillor Cox. In it, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with all the previous speakers on commending this motion. Being a family associated with some of the people that are doing it tough in the community, I only think this is a positive sign. I only hope that we can be involved in it as a council, and hope it comes to fruition. And but we are in a competition with a lot of other towns doing the same thing, so hopefully we can come out on top. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Limbrick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion, certainly. And I suppose it concerns me that we needed to have an inquiry into homelessness in Victoria to start with, and that's the tragedy of all of this. And to read in the report that the major cause of homelessness is family violence against women and young people is further evidence of that. I think it's an absolute social disaster. And I think we have got opportunities. We certainly have got people that are affected within our municipality, and I think we owe it to them to go through the process, and hopefully we can offer some support and long-term solution.
Thank you, Councillor Limbrick. Any other councillor wish to speak to it?
Yes.
Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. I support that we do undertake a review to see what land that we don't want to use. We may even decide that we'd like to go into some, a 50-year lease or something. There's lots of options. But first of all, we've got to identify what's available. I think it's really, really important. Moira's up there in the top 20% of disadvantage in Australia, as Councillor Brooks said before, out of the 544 councils, we've got about, at the moment, 81 people that are identified as being homeless. And when we look at our wellbeing for all ages strategy, it says housing is one of the key social determinants to health. Barriers to positive health and wellbeing include access to transport options within towns and access to affordable housing. So I think it is conscionable for us to pursue this. I have seen some terrific housing in Shepparton that it was for a specific young people who would have been homeless. They could no longer live at home, and that is setting a real standard there. And that's just one example. So I think first of all we find out what we've got available and then review that. But I think we need to get a move on, because I think the money will be chased, and the government will be looking to see if conditions change too. But it offers a lot of jobs and things like that too, if it all comes to fruition, and jobs for cadets and things like that. But the ultimate thing is to provide housing for those that really need it. Thank you.
Councillor Martin. Councillor Elliott. Okay. Councillor Brooks, you wish to sum up?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Does Councillor Martin she carried? No, I'll just say yes, I suppose. Yep. Okay. 10.4 infrastructure, 10.4.1 Yarrawonga Library Events and Performance Precinct. Can I have a councillor move that? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that council approves the commencement of construction of the Yarrawonga Library Events and Performance Precinct.
Can I have a councillor Lawless? Councillor Mansfield, you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another procedural matter in the long drawn out saga of getting a new library and events and performance precinct at the Shire Hall site. It'll be terrific. As I understand it, the tenders for the facility have closed today at 5 o'clock, which will be considered by council panel and probably approved in late January, the successful tenderer. And hopefully after that, work will commence. The Treasury Corporation of Victoria have offered a loan facility of 3.75 million to finance the Yarrawonga Library and Events and Performance Precinct through the Community Infrastructure Loan Scheme. This scheme supports the delivery of community infrastructure by providing Victorian councils with access to low interest government guaranteed loans. And this is a great facility that will mean that council is not burdened with large interest payments. And I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Lawless.
Just to add on to Councillor Mansfield's, what he said about the numbers, the main purpose of us moving this motion is that the TCV are accepting as moving this motion of proof that we are committed to the project, and that then qualifies us for the funds. They needed to receive evidence that we were committed to the project, and they're virtually sort of saying to us, if we move this motion here, that we are we will release the funds or negotiate with the funds, as the way I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Any other councillors? Councillor Elliott, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to endorse Councillor Mansfield's comments, and that the concept has been in the pipeline for a long time now, and some councillors nominated for council on the promise of delivery of this project. And how exciting is that we'll finally see the commencement of this project, and I believe me, I really do think it will revitalise the Town Hall precinct. And also that the low interest scheme had to be set in motion by this council, because for future councils, they will be able to continue to build on that premise. So
thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Mansfield, you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to complete it's unfortunate that we haven't been able to proceed with this particular project. It's been delayed probably for 12 months, which is probably, in layman's term, probably put another 10% cost on the facility, which is unfortunate. But we've gone through the motions of consultation, steering committees, recommendations, consultants, and here we are now ready to go. So I endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. 10.4.2 Special Rates and Charges Policy. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Lawless.
The recommendation is the council endorse the special rates and charges policy.
Councillor Cox, did you second that motion? Councillor Lodge, should you speak to it?
I haven't got a lot to say, but this is a really important policy. We had a draft policy that went an exhibition for 3 weeks, and we had 5 submissions on that, and some of the submissions were a little bit concerned about the fairness of how things are, and I think within our policy, that is, I think, well accommodated. It's not a new policy. It's more or less bringing a previous policy up to date. But I think the main part that we've sort of looked at over time is having a clear and consistent approach across the Shire, and so that we can define areas that are of a major benefit to actually individuals and to bigger groups of people, and then to the broader community. And this policy takes all of those things into consideration when we come to setting a shared charge on doing footpaths or gutters or things like along those lines.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Cox. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion?
Yep.
Councillor Lawless, you wish to sum up? All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. 10.4.3, contract C011/21 council facility and asset key renewal. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Elliott, thank you.
Yes, I recommend, council recommends that council award the contract for C011/21 council facility and asset key renewal to MV Locksmiths. Number 2, authorise the CEO to sign and seal the contract documents.
Thank you, councillor. Could I have a councillor second? Councillor Lawless. Councillor, you wish to speak to the case?
Just quickly, we invited submissions from suitably qualified locksmiths to undertake the big project of moving council facilities and assets to an updated key and lock system throughout the Shire. After considerable consideration, the panel recommends that this contract be awarded to MV Locksmiths. A quite large scope of works in all aspects of the key model were used and had to be considered, and there was 3 submissions received.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Lawless, will speak to it? Any other councillor wish to speak to it? Thank you. You don't wish to sum up, councillor? All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. 10.4.4, contract C023/21, strengthening of Numurkah Road Bridge. Could I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Martin. What was your point,
I'd like
Councillor
to move the council award the contract. Sorry.
It's okay, go on, councillor Martin.
Thank you, Peter. Award the contract for CO23/21, the strengthening of Numurkah Road bridges to Waratah Bridge Constructions Victoria Proprietary Limited. Secondly, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract documents. And 3, assign Waratah Bridge Constructions Victoria Proprietary Limited as the principal contractor for undertaking the project.
Thank you, councillor Martin. Could I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Cox. Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's great that it's being done because it's needed to carry the heavier traffic. So it's a, well overdue safety and project there for good traffic management. So it's good to see it here, and it's going to be moving forward, and that we are awarding this contract. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Martin. Councillor Cox, you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Mayor. At the end of the day, we need good bridges, Mr. Mayor, and when we build them decades ago, they somehow just crumble away or fall down, as we often get advised. So at times we come in with $500,000 as a council to fix up some bridges, and I think it's just further strength to our Shire that we do these projects on behalf of our community, because they're important for safety, number one, And as we go into society now, we've got a changing dynamics in our rural sector. Bridges are incredibly important, and I just think it's money extremely well spent, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cox. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Martin, you wish to sum up?
I'd like to add that we're very, very lucky that we've got Foods Transports in particular, that, it's pretty heavy usage of the road, and other trucks too coming and going. So, yeah, it's a necessity. And as councillor Cox said, it's good that we've got the money to be able to provide that so it remains safe passage for all. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Martin. All those in favour of the motion? Carried, thank you. Right, okay, 11, actions officer list, Neil. 12, notice of motion, Neil. 13, petition and joint letters, councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a petition by the Yarrawonga community and others to the Moira Shire Council. And the petition is, we the undersigned request that Moira Shire Council lease the whole of the former Yarrawonga Primary School site from DET whilst negotiations continue to acquire the site urgently under the first right of refusal for community use. The North East Water Crown Reserve should also become the property of the community site. And the total signatures are 910 and Moira Shire residents' signatures are 773. And I'll present this to the Shire.
Thank you, councillor Mansfield. Okay, council seal, Neil. Now we go into 15, urgent general business. Any councillors to state their urgent general business? Councillor Elliott, what is your urgent general business?
Look, I don't know if it's urgent or not, Mr. Mayor, but during question.
You need to start, then we need to get a second. on it, so-
I'll move that urgent general business be accepted.
Thank you, councillor Elliott. Seconded, councillor Limbrick, sorry. Right, councillor, you go for it now.
Jump the gun again. No, I just, in question time before, there was a question regarding the pedestrian access across the Weir Bridge. I walked across that this afternoon, so unless I did something totally illegal, I think it's open for pedestrians, Mr. Mayor.
Just to point there, I think they're referring to the main pavement, the actual road section of the bridge, to allow pedestrians with pushers or bikes or anything to use that facility. I think that's the idea.
Okay,
Fair call.
no other urgent general business, councillor Lawless?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's something I'd like to raise, and only to let the public know that it is an area that we're working on. We did talk about it earlier today, and I think it's the state of our telecommunications within the Shire, and that's phones and NBN and all those things that we are. And I probably live 15 k's out of town in fair income. Sometimes you think you live in the outback because the service is pathetic. But I did bring this up earlier today, and I realised that that we are doing something in this area, and it has been raised with the Murray group of councils as well. But I think the public need to know that that we are doing something in this area, and perhaps other people that have got better knowledge than me might be able to fill the public in on what we're doing in this space, because I think it is really critical. Look, I'd be quite happy to pay for the service I'm getting. Yeah, I'd pay half the bill because that's all I'm getting. And I just don't think I'm really disappointed in the federal government and the way they've let some of these telecommunication companies get away with charging a full rate and people only getting a half service. Now, I'm probably in one of the better areas in the Shire, but there's heaps of places that within a stone's throw of me where there's no mobile phones, and I know it's not our area, but talking about places in the Berrigan Shire and that Federation Shire that are disgraceful. you get down to the western end of the Shire and it's disgraceful. Like, so a person goes in and signs up for $100 a month plan trying to run a business and it works 20% of the time. Well, sorry, that's not good enough. But I just want to really let the public know that it is something that we are working on, and I'm really encouraged from what I've heard earlier today. And I just hope that somebody else may have a comment and share my feelings.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless. Councillor Mansfield.
I completely endorse Councillor Lawless's thoughts on the matter. Next month, we have our federal member coming into the area to open the Yarrawonga to Burramine bicycle cycle path. I was wondering if we could organise a roundtable discussion with our federal member at that opportunity so that we can voice our concerns about this and other things that are really federal matters. And I think that's what, if we can get Damien Drum to allocate a couple of hours of his time on that day to have a roundtable discussion with councillors and council staff on our concerns with that and other things.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. We can sure ask the question to see whether he's prepared to. I think it's a very important topic and we need to start talking about it. Any other council reports?
Yeah. Just one thing on the resignation of Councillor Burke. I'd like to endorse the Mayor's comments on his contribution to council. Councillor Kevin Burke was very, very keen on local government. He looked after the whole of the Shire, especially the western end. I think a lot of the things that he, it's the old story, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and Kevin Burke was certainly squeaky. But it did achieve a lot of things in Nathalia, especially with drainage, pedestrian crossings, looking after Blake Street, and even the little towns like Picola and Barmer. Barmer, he on his own head, he probably saved the Barmer Caravan Park, and we've got the Barmer Punt being upgraded, and a lot of other things around Barmer and the western end of the Shire. And I commend Councillor Burke for his service, and also wish him all the best down the track.
Okay, so is there a motion? No. Okay, there's no motion. So any other? Not a motion. Okay, is there any other? Councillor Martin, you've got your hand.
Yeah, I'd just like to endorse those remarks that Councillor Mansfield made, because Councillor Burke really did service the whole of the Shire, which is our whole is our role. We're unsubdivided, and he really did do that. So did a fantastic job. So thank you, Councillor Burke, Kevin Burke. Thank you.
Councillor Lawless.
I'd just like to endorse previous comments, but the other huge issue that he put a lot of time into was the Numurkah flood study, and he certainly got that community really motivated to push ahead, and always kept those projects in front of us. And I think, yeah, I'd like to wish him all the best in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Lawless, and I endorse all councillors on Kevin Burke. So I think we've had a great meeting, and now I'd like to close the meeting. Thank you, councillors, and see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you. Meeting closed.
Yep. Good night.